Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
We are back. We're back with a Training Thursday, episode 1952 of the Cabral Concept. Glad you could join me here. Excited to get back to our roots here. For about 5 years in a row, we did Training Thursdays. Everything that you could think of, from dynamic warm-up exercises to which programs are best for what body type, for how many sets to use, what days to weigh yourself on. Like literally, if you could think about it, we went over that topic. And again, you can find all of those previous Training Thursdays over at stephencabral.com/podcast. Well, today we are going over the difference between fast versus slow weight loss exercises. And the reason why I want to go over this is that there's no doubt about it in our society, in a Western-based society, Western-based mindset. The goal is always to do things the fastest way possible, but oftentimes it comes back to bite us. And that is a big one we're going to talk about today. Because I can tell you from a practice-based perspective, I know it works from the fast, right, the down and dirty method, or from the longer method. But wouldn't it be nice if we were able to combine both? And of course, that's what I want to be able to give you here today. So what is the fastest way to lose weight? And again, I know that this is going to rub a lot of personal trainers the wrong way, but we'll get to you in just a moment because I know that I love personal trainers and I love the personal training industry. But honestly, the fastest way to lose weight, and I know, again, this is going to crush a lot of people. It crushes me too when I hear it, but that's because it's short-term thinking, okay? Short-term thinking. But the fastest way to lose weight is to go out and jog and run and do cardio. Now, again, I know that it's an unpopular statement right now, but again, we're going to correct that in just about 5 minutes from now. So here's the reason why it's so effective and why it works so quickly. Because in the very beginning, believe it or not, running, like a real impact, right? You could do a bike, but it has to include a lot of what's called biomechanical based work, which means it has to work a lot of the body and it needs to be difficult. So when people get on the exercise bike, or especially the recumbent bike, and they're just kind of pedaling away, reading the newspaper, we've all seen those people in the gym, and that's okay. If that works for you, then great. If you're just looking to kind of get the blood pumping, fine. But if you're looking to really transform your body, you need to challenge your body, because your body looks how it does right now. And again, for better or for worse, because of what it's asked to do. That's it. And of course, through nutrition, but we're talking about exercise here today. So if we really want to transform the body, we need to put it through some work. But the difference with weight training versus cardio, and we're just talking about cardio for right now, is that it actually does work the body for about the first 12 weeks or so, maybe even 16 weeks, as long as you're making progress. That means that typically as personal trainers, as health professionals, we say, no, when you're doing cardio, it's really just working your heart and lungs, because that's the truth. But that's when you've already become conditioned. In the beginning, it's actually working your legs. And I know we don't like to say that, but only in the beginning. But in the beginning, no doubt about it, you are working your feet, right? Over 200 plus muscles and joints and tendons and ligaments, stabilizers there. We're working the calf muscles, the anterior tib. We're working the quad. We're working all the hamstring muscles. We're working the glutes, hopefully for squeezing our glutes when we run. We're moving a little bit here in the shoulders. If you've ever had a shoulder injury, you know that if you run, it's very painful. You're working your shoulders, believe it or not. Not a lot of work, of course. We'll talk about that in a minute. And you're working, believe it or not, your core because you're resisting, basically you're resisting rotation, right? So you get a little bit of that transverse plane. So believe it or not, you're actually working your body. You are working your body. You're burning a lot of calories, and you're able to just keep pushing. Like, that's the thing, is you can keep progressing. So believe it or not, in the beginning, it really does work to lose weight. There's some major issues with it, which again, we'll talk about in just a second. But another reason and another factor why it works so great, and honestly, I didn't even want to believe it, but I had one of my private concierge clients, really great guy, worked with them for many years when I was in private practice. And he brought in a spreadsheet and he took his blood sugar all the time. He took it upon waking, before breakfast, an hour after breakfast, 2 hours after breakfast, again, before each meal, and then after each meal, and then before bed. So we looked at all of his workouts, very analytical type of guy, again, fantastic client. Looked at what it was during the day, and then also looked at what the blood sugar was the next morning based on his workout. And here's some really interesting results. And he wasn't the only one this happened to, because I started obviously using this in my practice quite a bit. Now, this particular client happened to be type 2 diabetic and then became type 1 diabetic before I started working with them. Here's the interesting thing, though. Even with a type 1 diabetic, and again, we have always to say we're not providing medical advice here, is that you're still working on stabilizing your blood sugar and using the littlest amount of insulin possible within a healthy scheme and making sure that there aren't wild fluctuations in blood sugar. And there was wild fluctuations in blood sugar with this particular client. And believe it or not, we found that the blood sugar was higher the days after he would do a very strenuous weight workout, which I've talked about in the past, the stress in the body, or a boot camp or a boxing-based class. But the days after he did his runs, all of his workouts were in the evening. The days after he did his runs, his blood sugar was always lowest the next morning. Really interesting. Now, why would that be? Well, when you're exercising very strenuously, remember, a key word here is strenuous. When you exercise strenuously with weights, oftentimes you are producing, you're in more of the anaerobic-based threshold, right? Anaerobic-based energy system. Your body needs more glucose. Sometimes, not always, but those higher levels of cortisol may actually break down stored liver glycogen and actually bring that into the bloodstream. But there's another explanation as well. When you're doing cardio, especially on more of an empty stomach, which is what I advise this particular client, not saying it's medical advice for you, but this particular client, and we did slower, believe it or not, steady state. We're not talking about sprints here because that would be more anaerobic. We're talking about aerobic. He actually used more of the sugar and glucose in the bloodstream as energy. Now you might say, well, that's not typically how it works, because when you're in the aerobic-based energy system doing cardio, you're using oxygen, right? That's your primary fuel source, not necessarily breaking down sugar or even glucose, but it's actually not the truth. It's just the truth is you're using more aerobic than anaerobic-based capacity, more maybe oxygen-based utilization rather than fast glycolysis or glycolysis, where you're using more glucose or sugar or lactic acid-based fermentation. You don't need to know what any of that means, except for the fact that when you're doing cardio, you are actually using up sugar as well, contrary to popular belief. And you're able to tap into body fat. There's no doubt about that. You're able to tap into body fat with both. Believe it or not, after weight training, the body fat, tapping into body fat typically comes later, the next like 24 to 31 hours, which is why it's so effective. We'll talk about that in a moment. So what I found was this. Believe it or not, good old-fashioned cardio, not an hour's worth, but let's say 20, 30 minutes, believe it or not, can be quite beneficial for burning calories. And if you're untrained, you're actually working your body and losing body fat fairly quickly through that, plus the glucose-based utilization. So, am I against cardio? Absolutely not. That's what I would consider getting results faster. Again, all this nutrition aside, of course, you need good nutrition. I'm not talking about that. However, that's fast. Now, do you get that fast of results with weight training? Well, you can if it is more of a circuit or high intensity based interval training, where you're not just doing a boot camp class, which is just a lot of reps and a lot of repetitive motion, but you're actually working more like 3 exercises, maybe 5 exercises, and you're doing them for a range of maybe 8 reps to 15 repetitions. You're pushing yourself, you're giving yourself a little rest and repeating through. You can actually get the same results. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. You don't get the same glucose benefits that I've seen, but you get great weight loss results. However, there should be a point where you're actually working on strength, right? I'm not talking about squatting 225 for 5 reps for all people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about doing 5 sets of 5, really just working on strength. But you do need to work on strength training. And it's because if you don't, it's going to bite you in the future, right? It's going to come back to bite you in the future. It really is. And here's why. Multiple reasons. One, if you don't do any strength training and progressive overload, especially on the limbs, legs and arms for men and women. As we get older, our limbs tend to get thinner, especially with men, and our trunks, which is the whole upper body region, tend to get bigger, wider, bulkier, okay? Now, this does not mean spend your time doing curls and tricep press downs, okay? What it means is squats, lunges, step ups, and like a Romanian deadlift, okay? And I've talked about those in previous shows. You can search them at stephencabral.com/podcast. I will link up to some shows here today as well. But why is that so important? When you start to lose your muscle, which will happen, by the way, so this is the fast results, right? Fast results with cardio. What happens if you just do cardio and no weights? You start to strip away muscle. What happens when you strip away muscle? Your metabolism slowly over time goes down, which is why eventually you need to what? Either increase your cardio to maintain that weight loss or keep decreasing your calories. It's a zero-sum game. Eventually, you are not going to be able to do enough cardio, not that you should do that much cardio, and you're only going to be able to eat so little. You have to do some strength training. If you don't do strength training, your glutes are going to start to sag. You're going to start to get smaller glutes. You're going to get smaller leg muscles. Remember, 60% basically of your muscle is between your kneecap and the top of your hip. If you are not working those legs with strength training, not running, remember, running eventually loses its effect for the actual muscles and becomes pretty much cardiovascular, heart and lungs. It's great to do, not saying that, but not eventually for your body transformation. You keep that, but you want to add in 2 to 3 days of strength-based training. Big movements, compound movements. You can do any type of presses, vertical or horizontal, rows, vertical or horizontal, and then basically knee dominant versus hip dominant. If you don't know what any of that means, again, I explained it in previous podcasts, but basically squats, lunges, deadlifts, and step-ups, and presses, and rows, and vertical rows as well, which would be more like a pull down or pull up. And then, of course, you can do chops, you can do rotation, you can do other arm movements if you want in there, but they can't replace your big compound movements, which allows you to do what? Keep muscle on your body as you age. Because men and women, but especially women after the age of 27, you start to lose 5 pounds per decade. Might seem like no big deal, a half a pound a year. Well, 5 pounds every 10 years. What's that? 10 pounds in 20 years. The math's going to stop me here. 20 pounds in 40 years. That is a lot of muscle to lose. What does that mean? Well, you burn less calories during the day if you have less muscle. So if you burn less calories, what does that mean? Well, if you eat the same amount of food, you start to pack on the pounds. And you don't know why. Because you start still doing your cardio. You're still eating your 1,200, 1,400 calories a day. Why am I still gaining weight? Because you're losing muscle. So your metabolism is dropping and dropping and dropping. Studies show that between each pound of muscle is worth about 30 to 50 calories or so, again, of active muscle per day. So here's the thing. You simply want to make sure, you don't need to go overboard, but that you are working strength training 2, minimum, to 3 times per week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If you can only do the weekends, Saturday, Sunday, and then get in Wednesday. All right, find a way to get that in Wednesday. And again, you want to be working the bigger movements. And what this is going to allow you to do is actually be able to keep the weight off for life. So if you have your short, fast weight loss results through cardio, especially if you're a beginner, and some high-intensity interval training. Love it. No issues there. No issues, okay? But how are we going to keep that muscle on? Which means how are we going to keep that metabolism elevated into your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond? We're only going to do that in one way. Not cardio and not boot camp classes. We're going to do it in one way, and that's real strength-based training in order to tell the body you need to preserve this muscle. And again, they don't have to be crushing workouts. You need to do enough to stimulate the body to tell you, hey, I'm still using this muscle. Don't get rid of it, because your body sees it as a detriment. It takes calories to maintain this muscle. Remember, tell your body you're still using that muscle, and it will literally, your body will thank you for years in terms of its strength, its energy, it's mitochondria, ATP production, its ability to use glucose. Remember, the majority of the stored glucose in your body is actually in your muscles. Less muscle, less ability to use carbohydrates. So there's so many reasons why that you should be doing strength training. It's too in-depth for even one podcast. But again, I've done many, many shows over at stevencabral.com/podcast. If this was helpful, you can simply click on those Training Thursdays. So again, hopefully this show was helpful. Happy to answer additional questions as well. Feel free to leave them down in the comments today. And of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. You know, it means the world to me. I truly appreciate your support. And that is why I want to make sure that you are joining me and thousands of other people like you June 21st. We're kicking off our functional medicine summer detox and style together. We'll be with you every step of the way to support you, and I will be doing this myself. This is truly one of the highlights of our year, being able to go through our quarterly functional medicine detoxes as a community. Always so many people participate, and there'll be thousands of other people just like you looking to take their health to the next level, maybe lose some of that stubborn body fat, and also live longer, stronger. So to have you join our great functional medicine detox, we would love to give you our best offer to date, which is buying 3 functional medicine detox or a 21-day detox, same thing, and getting 1 free. This is literally a $100 value. Now, it would be amazing for you to get 2 or 3 of your friends together, family members, and have you all join together. And if you do that and you split the cost, it's just $65 per person. I mean, that is for all of your food for 2 days, which are your 4 shakes each day, all of your breakfast for the rest of the time, and a mid-afternoon snack. It would literally cost more to actually eat foods on those days. So this is all that to say is there is no reason why you wouldn't want to join this amazing global functional medicine detox. The results speak for themselves. It's literally guaranteed to work for you, and I would love to have you with the community. If you've never heard about a functional medicine detox and all of the different benefits, you can tune in to that detox at equi.life. That's equi.life/detox. All the details will be there. And again, it's a $100 savings right now. So whether you save this detox, the free one for yourself for the future, or you want to give it to a family member to have them join in with you because you've already experienced the results, that choice is yours. While supplies last, jump on in at equi.life. Take care, everyone. Always let us know if you have any questions.